Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Wilmac Wire. It's the last episode of season 2, people, of 2025. What a wonderful, a joyous year full of awesome conversations that we've been able to stream on this podcast. That being said, to round out season 2, to round out 2025, I'm happy to have a friend of Wilmac as a guest on the podcast today, Mr. Colby Feane, the Vice President, Financial Advisor, and Portfolio Manager at Wealth Enhancement Group. Steve and Colby grew up together. They were on the same AAU basketball team together. We've worked with Colby at Wilmac, so really excited to have a great conversation with him on the podcast today. That being said, we cover a myriad of topics. Colby's in the finance investment world, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the intimidation factor that tends to come along with investing and some things and ways to work around that intimidation and better educate yourself. Beyond that, we're gonna talk about Colby's heavy involvement in the community, including being a board member for multiple organizations. We're gonna touch on what motivates him, being a dual sport college athlete. So really excited to dig into that conversation with Colby. That being said, I'm really excited to announce that in season 3 of the Wilmac Wire, starting on January 8th, 2026, Steve and I are going to be launching weekly episodes with the drivers, the people that we've been talking to who are making a difference in their industry, locally in New York, just in general. So we're really excited to be launching that and have a great lineup of guests for our listeners, for you. So solid conversation with Colby to round out 2025. Make sure to tune in to season 3 in 2026, starting on Thursday, January 8th. Thank you for tuning in. Happy holidays. I'll see you in 2026. Enjoy today's episode. Thank you.
Welcome to the Wilmac Wire. I'm Emily Miller, joined by my co-host, Steve McDonnell. On this show, we talk with the drivers, the leaders, innovators, and decision makers pushing customer interaction technology and AI forward. And because we're proud to call Western New York home, we also spotlight the drivers in our own community, the people and organizations shaping growth and innovation right here. Let's get into it.
We'll get things started with another fun introduction of our distinguished guest for today, and bear with me, this is an impressive list, so I might have to take a few deep breaths during it. But coming in at 6 feet tall, a partner of Wilmac, graduating from Hobart and William Smith colleges as a 2-sport athlete. He started down in New York City on JP Morgan's institutional foreign exchange sales desk. After that, where he relocated to Rochester, working at Manning & Napier and Armbruster Capital Management. Now the VP Financial Advisor and Portfolio Manager at Wealth Enhancement Group, a distinguished CFA charter holder, a Rochester Business Journal 40 Under 40 award winner, board member for the Greater Rochester YMCA, Monroe Community College Foundation, and the Statesman Athletic Association of Hobart College, and most importantly, residing in Pittsford with his wife and 2 daughters. Welcome to the Wilmac Wire, Colby Feane.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
It's quite the setup. My first podcast in a studio like this, so let's get it rolling.
We're setting the bar high.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. Right off
down
the bat.
the street from you.
Yeah, right around the corner. So I could have walked here if weather was a little more balmy. But happy to be here.
Not quite recording in December.
Pretty chilly.
Yeah, got to shout out Rock Fox Studios whenever we record in there. So shout out to Scott and the team here. Setting it up nice for us. But Colby, are you originally from Rochester?
I am not. I am originally from a little town called Wheatsport, New York. Wheatsport is about, it's probably 45, 50 minutes east of here. Exit 40 on the thruway. We've got a stoplight, maybe 2. So small little town. I went from Wheatsport to Hobart, and then from Hobart to New York City to Rochester. So that's kind of the route that I took to get where I am now.
Okay, and we'll dig into your career journey a little bit more, but what brought you to Rochester to relocate from New York City to here?
Couple of things. We wanted to get out of, my wife and I, we were married for a few years living in New York, and we wanted to get out of the city. And really the emphasis was on finding a place that was going to be comfortable for us to raise family. So it was sort of a family first destination for us. Proximity to home was important. So home being my in-laws live in Auburn.
Okay.
My parents now live in New Hartford, which is outside of Utica. So kind of, 2 hours-ish down the throughway. We looked at Rochester. We looked at Syracuse. I have a brother in Albany. Okay. So we looked at kind of the upstate towns. I don't know. I think it felt like home to me.
Yeah.
I love the Erie Canal. I love the proximity to the Finger Lakes. And we had some friends here. My wife went to Geneseo. Her sister lives in Rochester, went to Geneseo. So we had some connections that were part of the draw to the Rochester area.
That's awesome. Yeah, just curious. But Weedsport, I've heard of Weedsport before. Single, like you said, single stoplight. I like those types of towns. Those
I don't mean to interrupt, but we just went back to Weedsport. Just went back to 11-man football. So we have a full football team now. We used to play for the past few years. We've been playing 8-man football, which as a Weedsport alum is a little bit.
They didn't want to just combine with another town.
They talked about that, and that's what a lot of the smaller schools have done, is combined with smaller other neighboring schools. And I don't know, maybe we just had too fierce a rivalry with some of our
you're back.
Local. We're back.
We're back.
Schools you wouldn't recognize. Small schools. Weedsport's like a Class C, Class D school.
Yeah.
When I was there, we had 21 guys on the team. And so we didn't even have enough for a full scout team. So our assistant coaches had to double as, part of the scout team. I can remember punting on third down. That was part of we were good at football in high school. So we would kneel the ball, and then punt. So I don't know what's more demoralizing than punting on third down or getting beat bad.
Oh, that's rough. Yeah, we'll definitely get into the sports conversation a little bit later. But we're just going to start with your career journey. Can you walk us through your career path so far? And did you always see yourself ending up in that investing portfolio management type of position that you're in now?
In short, no. I went to Hobart with really no idea whatsoever what I wanted to do. I have an older brother. He played baseball in college, Washington College, down in Chestertown, Maryland. And when he got to school, he knew that he wanted to be an attorney, which he is. I didn't have that same sort of idea in my head. So got to Hobart, and first year I took an economics course, which was a requirement, not something I sought out. And it was sort of this nice blend of, there was some numbers involved, but it wasn't sort of all black and white. There was some subjectivity and psychology that was kind of rolled into the curriculum, and that appealed to me. So I became an economics major, went down that track, and I really owe a nod to the career services department at Hobart and William Smith Colleges. They have a program, it's called the Napier Leadership Program, and it's really an offshoot of the athletic department, and they put you through this sort of career track. Okay. And so there was a guy that was running the career services department. His name was Bob Murphy, and he took me aside, and I was a junior at the time, and he said, "What are you going to be when you grow up?" I said, "I have no idea." I'm focused on football, and I'm focused on basketball and trying to get good grades. And he said, I think we need to put a little polish on you. And so he was nice enough to set up an internship for me while I was still in school with a local advisor in Rochester, where I got course credit. Okay. So it was something I kind of took out of my day job, or my student life, to go work a day job. And that led to, it's kind of a funny story, there was an opportunity where there was 3 senior managing directors from JP Morgan's investment bank that were coming to campus. They had all graduated in the late 80s, and all of them were football players. And so they show up at campus, and they're going to do interviews for summer internships. And so Bob Murphy says, "Hey, Colby, great opportunity. I think you should throw your hat in the ring." And I said, "Absolutely not. I'm not going to New York. I've been there a couple of times for baseball games, but that's it." So he twisted my arm, said, "Do me a favor. Can you put your name on the list, do an interview with these guys?" So I reluctantly did. I didn't prepare at all. And I met with a guy by the name of Eric Stein, who was from Buffalo. And we had this I fumbled my way through the interview. At the end of it, they picked 2 kids out of this group of probably 20 or 25 that had interviewed. I was not one of them. But lucky for me, one of the other guys that was there, a guy by the name of John Hogan, he was very close with my football coach. And so in his time in Geneva, this visit that they had, my name came up, and my football coach said to John Hogan, if you hire Colby, you won't be disappointed. And so long story short, John Hogan eventually reaches out to me. He, over the course of the next few months, takes me under his wing. I get an internship in New York City. At the time, the money was too much to ignore. My previous summers were spent in a factory. And so going from, worrying about 55 hours a week and 15 hours of overtime to an internship in New York City was like a big leap for me. But he took me under his wing. I went down there for the summer, a 10-week program, got a job offer to come back, got acclimated to New York City and kind of Wall Street life, and put my head down. It was interesting. It was 2000.
Did you get the So it was the summer after you graduated?
Between junior and senior year, I got an internship.
And then you got the offer during your senior year.
And then at the end of, a lot of the investment banks do the same thing. At the end of that internship, the goal, the hope is that you get an offer to come back full time.
Right.
So my senior year, I knew kind of where I was going back.
Where'd you live during that internship?
I lived at Columbia, so Columbia University.
So they house you?
Yeah. Well, they allow you to pick where you want to be, but they give you a housing stipend. Okay. So I was in more or less a dorm room at Columbia. Yeah. And they work you pretty hard.
Which office were you going to?
270 Park Ave. So right kind of midtownish.
Yeah.
Just very close to Grand Central. But it's the middle of the summer and you're lots of activities. At this point, they're trying to almost cozy up to the interns because they know that there's, other opportunities they have. So you're going from baseball game to the U.S. Open to, all the whining and dining that they try to do. Yeah. So it was a busy summer. But I got back, end of the summer, I got a job offer to come back, and having been down there and gotten my feet wet, it was a little easier to say yes. And
right.
So I went from, there was the athletic director at Hobart always said, I'm going to write a book. It's going to be from Weedsport to Wall Street. So,
yeah, that's a good title.
So anyway, that's how I got my kind of foot in the door. I owe it to both the career services at Hobart, but also this, slate of alum that went out of their way to take a raw kid from Weedsport and bring him down to the city.
What were you doing for your first job?
So when I started, they put you through, at the time, they put you through a training program. I was an economics major. A lot of these kids that I was sort of, in this class with, they were finance, and so they had a lot more exposure to kind of real life bond math type stuff. I was more theory and so liberal arts education at Hobart, and so they teach you how to learn. They don't teach you maybe the specifics that
these guys are coming from Ivy League colleges.
Yeah, vast majority. Yeah. MIT, Harvard, Yale, Brown, you name it.
Yeah.
So I started out on a foreign exchange sales desk where the customer was commercial bank and corporate investment bank clients. So essentially these people were the end client was typically a client of the bank where they had a banking relationship and they needed foreign exchange for some reason. Maybe there was an M&A transaction, maybe they had overseas operations. But the whole goal of the foreign exchange desk was to mitigate risk. A lot of times it was kind of stripping FX out of their business, foreign exchange out of the business. I did that for a couple of years, and then the financial crisis hit. And I was seen as sort of a young buck on the desk. And they shifted me over to the institutional desk. And so the institutional desk, the clientele is very different. It's not a corporate customer. You're not dealing with a CFO of a company. You're dealing with a pension fund or a hedge fund manager, and they're trading foreign exchange to generate alpha. They want to put a trade on. So the pace is very different. The intensity is very different. But that's how I cut my teeth. And so it was it's a trial by fire. People talk about it, but I was on a desk that was sort of fast paced. And it was in the midst of the financial crisis, which, just as luck would have it, JP Morgan was sort of a beneficiary of some of the carnage. So it's a good place to be.
What are your hours if you're on a foreign exchange?
So the market never closes, unlike the stock market.
You have to get there earlier than
so we were typically on the desk by 6 or 6:15.
Yeah.
You usually work, probably average day was probably a 12-hour day, depending on what goes on. And then we would take over the book, they would refer to it as, but it's basically the trading book from London, and then we would hand it off to Asia, and then we would go home. But FX was a tough place to be with holidays because there's certain holidays that we celebrate here that not the rest of the world is celebrating. So the fact that it never closed was a pain in the butt as a junior that had to man the fort, so to speak.
Yeah.
So
let me ask, did you have like a welcome to the investment industry moment while you were down there? That you were like, okay, this isn't Weedsport anymore.
I would say you get kind of calloused quickly. When you sit on a trading desk, you think of boiler room is the best way to describe it, where you're on a long desk. I had 6 screens in front of me. Mm-hmm. The guy or girl next to you is arm's length away. Mm-hmm. So it's very intimate.
Yeah.
You can't really say or do much without your neighbor knowing what's going on. Yeah. It's very intense, meaning, clients get angry, traders get angry, sales guys get angry. I can remember this, they used to have these, like an old school rotary phone with the curly cord on it.
Yeah.
The hard plastic, and there would be sales guys that missed a trade or something happened, and they would take it and they would just smash it on the desk and it would explode.
Yeah.
And then they would call the IT guy and say, I need a new phone. But I would say welcome to the real world. It was probably maybe not a specific day, but it was the idea that when you worked alongside someone, you were, a lot of times to start, you were kind of in the background. Mm. So maybe you picked up the phone and kind of shadowed a conversation, or you modeled up a derivative that they were trying to price and send to a client. And then at some point, that guy that you're working with decides he's going to go get a sandwich, and then his line rings. And you have to pick it up, and you have to do it. So there's really not a whole lot of training ground in terms of, a program, if you will, of going through and sort of getting your feet wet. It's more just you get chucked into the mix.
Jump right in.
Yeah.
I always find that interesting. Like, there's just no break during the day. They can't go to lunch or coffee without someone else being like, hey, you got to cover.
Yeah.
It's just a steady.
Well, yeah. I mean, you've been exposed to the trading floor. You were in New York City.
Crazy.
Like, what was your experience with on like the other side of it?
It's intensity. We were the ones selling technology, and we sold a lot through turret companies, which are those phones.
Yeah.
So they made a ton of money with that hardware, and traders don't want now they're adapting to it, but they don't want the soft phone, the internet. They're like, I want to be hardwired in
so they can bash it.
And every second counts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They lose connection.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Tons of money that could be on the line. So if you really dig it back, it's hardwired under the ocean. Mm-hmm. I mean, those are lines going under the ocean to connect.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just their intent. I mean, the different style of person. It's go, go, go. And I mean, if you miss a trade, it's a lot of money on the line for for your client.
Yeah, they would used to say ass and seat. Sorry if I can't say that. But, that's how you make money, is your butts in your seat.
So what happens at like lunch if someone's like, hey, I'm going to run and get a sandwich. I'll be 20 minutes. Do you want something? And by the way, cover.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah. People order food in a lot, right?
Yeah.
So they don't leave.
Yeah, there was a fair number of, if you Googled it, you could probably see, but, there's all sorts of hazing that goes on, I guess. Is probably the best word. Where
watch the movies.
Yeah.
Watch the movies.
I can remember there was a story from an intern in London. This is going off topic a little bit, but a managing director looked at the intern and said, hey, can you go grab us breakfast? And why don't you get something for yourself as well? And so he gave him his card, and the intern took this to mean I can go get myself a present. So he went out and he bought breakfast for this managing director, but he also bought himself a pair of shoes. And so he came back to the desk, and the managing director had, the intent was get yourself a sandwich or a bagel or whatever, coffee. And he thought it meant, for getting my breakfast, why don't you go get yourself a present? So that was like a running joke. But yeah, it was a kind of a culture shock to come outside of New York and have the flexibility to eat a lunch that's not right in front of your computer, or to go grab a coffee and not have to worry about someone manning the fort. That's just, it's just the nature of the business.
Okay. So after New York City, you relocate to Rochester. You're at Manning and Napier.
Yep.
How did that position change for you? Like, how did your career evolve from that?
Yeah. So when we made the decision to get out of New York, it's not that I didn't like what I was doing. It was really it was location, I would say. I'm not a New York City guy at heart. Like the congestion wears on me.
What about Leah?
Same thing.
Same.
Yeah. So, she worked in the city, my wife, and proximity-wise, I was very close to Grand Central. So we lived in Westchester County. I didn't even mention that, which is just north of the city. We took a Grand Central, like a Metro North train in, which is super easy, convenient. It's clean. It's on time. There's really nothing to complain about. But you live and die by the train schedule. And
it's not a 10-minute.
No, it's a
drive.
35-minute.
Right.
But my wife worked down on Wall Street. And so I was Midtown, she was Wall Street. So she was coming from Westchester County into Grand Central on a subway down to Wall Street, and then the same thing on the way home.
Right.
And there were nights when, horror stories where somebody threw up on the subway and they got delayed, and then you miss your train. Now you're stuck in Grand Central for another 40 minutes. So we just got to a point where we said, okay, enough of New York. She moved about a year before I did. She works at Excelis. That's the only job she's ever had in Rochester. So she came up a little before I did. And I had this sort of kind of pivot career-wise. Not a dilemma, but it was like, okay, I'm relatively young. I was still late 20s. And we had bought a house in Pittsford, the house we live in today. And it was like, what do I want to do? And I think one of the things that I realized in my time at JP Morgan was that the job is, some would describe it as cutthroat. I never felt like it was cutthroat, but it didn't feel like there was that proverbial snowball that you got to roll down the hill as you age in your career. I wasn't like building something. You were kind of as good as your last day's P&L. And I wanted to be a little bit more, I don't know. I wanted to enjoy the process of building a career, and so moving to Rochester, I kind of had to hit restart on that. Had the opportunity to go to J.P. Morgan's private bank, which was a real tough decision. I eventually went to Manning and Napier, which was at the time was probably the biggest asset manager in town.
Were you at their private bank here?
That's the conversation I had was with the private bank here.
Yeah,
but that was 2014.
Yeah.
So to credit to JP Morgan, they did a phenomenal job of trying to keep me kind of in-house. Yeah. That's the benefit of working for a big company is they've already invested a decade's worth of resources into you. They want to keep you if they can. But to transition a bit, when I got to Rochester, and maybe this dovetails into other parts of the conversation, there was sort of a renewed sense and feeling of the community and how important that is. I think sometimes you get that's lost on some people in New York metropolitan area. We lived in a town, but it still felt to me like broad New York City. It was, so it didn't necessarily feel as if I had a community where you knew people you were running into at the grocery store or, on the golf course or running on the canal or whatever.
Right.
So that was something that really kind of jumped out at me as attractive. It was something I really enjoyed getting back here.
Okay. Very cool. And yeah, we'll definitely touch on kind of your community involvement coming up, but we definitely wanted to jump into a conversation about from your perspective about 401k, about investing. Like there seems to be a lot of avoidance and disengagement when it comes to investing. I guess let's start with what you do at Wealth Enhancement Group and kind of how Wilmac partners with you, if you want to start there.
Yeah. We do a lot. I would say we, in a sense, what we strive to be is more or less a quarterback. So when it comes to 401ks, what does that mean? It means we as the investment advisor are coming in and we're helping companies either establish or maintain a 401k. And that can include a lot of different tasks or job responsibilities. At the bare minimum, it's, maintaining a diversified list of menu options for employees or participants to choose from. Beyond that, it's, working with whoever the trustees are to ensure that they're doing their job as fiduciaries. It's engaging with the different service providers. So whether that be a TPA or a record keeper or the fund companies themselves, it's engaging with employees. So sometimes you have employees that have questions and they say, hey, I would love to invest, but I don't know what I'm doing. How much do I put away? How much can I afford to save? What do I invest in? Do I do Roth or pre-tax? My wife has this job and she's doing this. So it's trying to pull all those pieces together.
Right.
But that's the 401k side. The other role and responsibility at the QCI team of Wealth Enhancement is I sit on our equity research team. I sit on our investment committee. So a couple of different hats. And, for our individual clients, again, we play that role of quarterback. So we're talking about financial planning. We're talking about retirement planning. We're talking about estate planning. Obviously, the investment management piece, which is, we're trying to navigate a market and make good, sound decisions for each one of our clients. But at the end of the day, on the 401k side, we're more or less a partner. On the individual side, we become, you're wedded in many respects to your clients, and you become more of a life advisor.
So one of the things that I'm seeing more as an owner of a company, and we have now a lot of younger employees, is a lack of knowledge, I guess, on 401k. And then I've gotten recently a lot of younger people scared to talk to me about it, but slowly starting to engage. What do you do for investments? Should I look into investments? Do you see that with the younger crowd or entry-level people, the people that probably wouldn't be talking to you individually, but still want to figure out how to get into the market?
Yeah.
How does that come about? How do you try to help companies like that have employees like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is you could chalk it up to just generational. They're a little more live in the moment. The other piece of it is that, younger kids tend to be saddled with a lot of different expenses today. So you get out of college, you might have debt. You might have credit card debt, you might have college debt, you might be trying to figure out how you buy a car or buy a home. And so, the list of priorities that you have, 401k or retirement savings, which in many respects could be 40, 50 years down the road, falls kind of to the side.
I agree with that. That's how I feel about it. In all honesty, like I guess I'm not as interested in learning about it, and that makes me it makes it difficult for me to wrap my head around it.
Sure.
And like someone will talk to me about it, and I'll be like, that makes no sense.
But is that lack of education overall in the world we live in? Like, yeah, you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But it's going to benefit you so much.
Right, like I know it'll help.
But it's such a delayed gratification.
It is.
Like it is.
Yeah.
It's the discipline. For the people that do the right things. They're glad they did, but it takes 45 years to come to that conclusion.
And I do think you hit on the education point. Like, I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing, and the only reason I started to understand was because we had partners like QCI come in and start to explain it to us, and then I researched it because it was part of the job, like the benefits I got from the job.
And the 401k isn't sexy. You know what? People come in and they're like, oh, what about NVIDIA?
Right.
Can I put some money? Like that's a little bit more attractive.
Yeah, there's been a gamification of investing that's happened. It's not a new phenomenon, but it's over the past few years. And it's one of the things that candidly worries us as, managers of portfolios outside of 401ks. It's just we've gotten used to this idea that money's easy to make. It's quick. You should double your money in a few days. Leverage is good. Nothing ever goes wrong. Like, I don't know. I would take the other side of that bet. So you've seen sort of, leveraged ETFs. You've got all these products. There's a vein of froth out there that I think makes it harder for people to just do sort of the old stodgy saving for a 401k is like, nah. But it works. I mean, you've seen the stats on, we talk to people all the time about the timing in the market. It's not timing the market, it's time in the market. Warren Buffett, he's made 98% of his wealth, I think it is, since the time he's accumulated 98% of his wealth from the age of 65 on. So he he was a rich man at 65, but now he's like an uber rich man. The other thing that we try to do is put some numbers on it. So, typically people understand the idea of the house and with respect to a casino. And with investing, your odds of success, much like a casino, your odds of success, meaning positive return on your invested dollar, go up the longer that you stay invested. So, there's not been too many rolling 10-year periods of time in history where you've had a negative return. And so we try to encourage people to say, this is going to pay dividends to you. This is going to work, but you just have to stay with it. And over time, much like a casino, you want people to keep at it. That's how you accrue the benefit.
What would you say is the safest way to go outside of 401k? If a 25, 26-year-old wants to put $10,000 into something, what would be the safest vehicle?
The depending on income levels, a Roth IRA is typically seen as like a low-hanging fruit for someone who's just getting started and has some extra discretionary dollars that they're not spending or haven't saved already in a 401k. Typically why we encourage 401k investing as sort of a starting place is oftentimes there's some sort of associated match with an employer.
Yep. Right.
And so that should be seen as free money. If you contribute 3% and you get a 3% match, you've already, in a sense, you've doubled your money right out of the gates. And so we encourage that to start. And once you've kind of maxed out your match eligibility, then moving to other vehicles. Roth IRA is good because you pay the tax now, never pay tax again.
It is funny. It must be some sort of education because you're even saying when you say to an employee, hey, do the 401k, plus you're getting free money. They don't look at you like it's free money.
No.
You're like, but I'm not seeing it in my bank account, so is it really there?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like they look at the paycheck and they're like, well, my paycheck is less. I don't know where the rest of that money went.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that there's an element, it's oftentimes for good reason. Again, but coming from someone who, works with folks who are newly retired, it does work out. But I think some of the apprehension with younger folks is the fact that this money feels like it's locked up in inaccessible.
Yeah.
And to an extent it is, but it's to your benefit sometimes.
Or I remember being in my 20s and being like, well, I'm going to make enough money anyways. Why do I have to? And that's not a good thought to have.
Yeah.
You should. And the other thing I would try to say, and I try to say to employees is there's, I don't know how many people aren't even playing in the game of the market. No. A lot of our population doesn't even play in that because they think there's a barrier to get into it.
Sure.
Or don't look at 401k as if you're playing in it. But it is the best way to multiply your money.
Yeah.
And 401k is the easiest step into it for especially the younger generations.
Yeah. Gone are the days of pensions and defined benefits.
That doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
Those have aged out more or less.
Interesting. I guess, what would you suggest when you're talking to your clients that are companies like Wilmac and you're going to present to employees, what would you say are the key things that you try to instill their knowledge with when they are getting started with something like a 401k?
So I definitely encourage or a focus on the match. I think that's critical. Psychologically, what I try to, not only do myself, but kind of instill in folks that are just starting, pay yourself first. So what does that mean? It means get your savings done with, and then whatever's left over, you can feel less bad about spending or indulging. To me, that, prioritizing where each dollar in your paycheck goes, I think it's not always easy, but it can feel a little bit more liberating when you do go out and you say, I took a trip. You didn't take a trip, and that trip, took money away from your 401k. You took the trip, hopefully, after you've already put away your money in the 401k.
Yeah.
I think that's so important But I think also for the younger crowd, it's so tough because you're strapped with certain debts.
Yeah.
That you're like, well, I got to.
And that does come up. I mean, that's a dilemma that we face when somebody says, I'm paying 23% on my credit card bill. What do I do? Should I save for my 401k or should I pay off my credit card? And that's, it's a case by case basis, but you can see the angst,
right?
If you're left with this, dilemma of where do you put your money? Do you want to dig yourself out of the hole,
right?
Or do you want to start to accumulate for 50 years in the future?
It's the same thing with college debt right now. I mean, obviously, listen to Colby. He had a great experience at Hobart, but a lot of these kids are coming out strapped with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, and they didn't get that special person to help them out,
right?
And they don't know what they're doing. And the next thing you know, they're taking a job that's not paying much and doesn't have a lot of future, and they're strapped with this debt. It's kind of a vicious cycle you see out there. That'll be interesting to see how the universities in the next 5 to 10 years adapt and play with that.
Yeah, like you said, on the education part of it. So it's not the first thing that's thrown in their face afterwards after graduating, and you're like, what the heck is going on? But yeah, appreciate you explaining all that, Colby. That made a lot of sense. Do you have any other questions for him on the financial front?
No, I don't think we have to dive into too deep on his advice on investments.
No,
for this podcast.
I could go down a total rabbit hole on all these things. I would just say that there's to each is kind of their own. Everyone's their own unique. This is again maybe going off track a little bit. We do a lot of. We have done DISC training. I don't know if I ever talked about this. So DISC, personality assessment. So we did it internally. There's an exercise internally that we did, but we also do it as a means of trying to identify how our clients are oriented. And it can help a lot because everybody is wired differently. And so trying to understand what makes, Joe tick versus Bob tick, it's different in the way you communicate. And somebody might like the stats. They might want to see an Excel file of what my savings is going to mean over 40 years. And somebody else might just require, a beer and a pat on the back to say, hey, you got to save more. It's
very true.
Yeah. It's just,
we've done the DISC assessments internally.
Yeah, we did Myers-Briggs.
We've done Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
But I think I never even thought about doing that for clients to get a better idea on how to work with them. That's a great idea.
Yeah. I mean, I think people, can get pigeonholed mentally into thinking that it's their way or the highway.
Right.
And when you're trying to, talk to somebody across the table that's just inherently different, your style has to change.
Yeah.
Before we move on to sports and community, so we've had a couple podcasts talking about the PE world and the acquisitions that are going on, especially in Rochester. Accounting firms, obviously, you see it. And you're with a firm, was QCI. Now you guys have been acquired. It's been a little while now.
4 years.
It seems to be going well. But are you seeing that in your kind of industry right now? A lot of it happening.
Not just in our industry. I think that, there's a lot of money. There's cash to be spent in private equity, deals to be had. The other thing is I think it's really a nod to the success that some of these local firms have had. It's you reach sort of a critical mass, and internal local succession planning becomes more and more difficult. And so it's a product of your success that you're looking to external third parties for transition help with succession. And I wouldn't expect it to slow down. I mean, from the PE's perspective, private equity firms' perspective, I do think that maybe some of the easy money, and this is just broadly speaking, not looking at any industry specifically, I think some of the easy money has already been made. When rates are really, really low and you can lever up and buy companies at relatively low valuations and then multiples scream higher, that's I think easier than actually, old school private equity where you actually you have your fingerprints are on the business and you go in and you buy and you make changes and you kind of pretty it up. I think that's where we're at now in the cycle, and that's a harder It's harder to come by.
In our industry, we're seeing that where it used to be, I don't care if you're profitable, just give me your revenue and you're going to get 10, 12x. Now it's all the multiples are coming down and you better be profitable.
Right.
And I think that goes too, because PE firm has to actually do some good work with you to get up to the next step. It's not an automatic go, hey, this is a great industry and we know we'll be able to flip you in 5 years, 7 years without putting much work into it.
Right.
So, but it's been interesting to see what's going on in Rochester, and you and the company that acquired you guys, it's been smooth. And
it's it's a little different. It's some of the firms are referred to as aggregators, which essentially is a big company, parent company that's backed, financial backers, and the model with Wealth Enhancement, they refer to it as a partnership model, and so we've retained the QCI name. We're the QCI team of Wealth Enhancement.
Okay.
We essentially make all of our investment decisions right here, a few hundred yards down the street. So nothing has changed for us.
So they let you guys act.
Yeah. I mean, we do have the freedom and flexibility to leverage some of the corporate offering that they have. So they have an investment program that if you said, hey, we don't want to do it, you could leverage what they have in-house. But if you want to remain kind of as is, which we have, we're probably the biggest silo within Wealth Enhancement. We have probably $5.5 billion. The parent company has $125 billion. Don't hold me to those numbers, but roughly. And so a lot of the bigger roll-ups have kind of just continued to do what they've always done. They just don't have that kind of lurking succession plan headache to deal with because it's already been taken care of.
So their model has basically been, they have multiple QCIs around the country.
Yeah.
And they let them act autonomously. If you need our help, we're here, but we want you guys to keep what you're doing.
Yep.
We're here as a financial backer.
They want to keep the promise that those RIAs made to their clients at the onset of the relationship. So if you hired QCI and Colby because you feel confident with Colby making your investment decisions, they don't want to have to break that promise. So it's worked well. Sometimes you see private equity get involved, not just in our business, but any business, and they come in and it's like, we're going to cut 30% of the workforce and you're not going to have this office, you're going to have that office. And that really hasn't been our experience. And so it's, I would say it's been a pleasant kind of, there's some other back office compliance related hoops you got to jump through with a bigger company, but not too many headaches.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Glad it's going well. All right. We're going to change kind of topics now and talk a little bit more about sports, our favorite topic of conversation. So you played football and basketball in college. You also, I think, grew up playing AAU with Steve, another former teammate of Steve's.
Yep.
First of all, how did you play two sports in college? And second of all, how did competing in two sports at a high level kind of impact the way you approach things now?
To start, so I think probably 17 when I met Steve. We were both on the same AAU team.
Okay.
And I maybe it's changed. It's probably changed a little bit, but AAU is essentially travel basketball.
Yep.
And it's at a higher level than some of the local leagues typically. And so you take these road trips, and I think nowadays those road trips are a little more glamorous. For Steve and I, we were in a big caravan with 10 or 12 other guys on the team.
Yeah. Getting picked up at throughway exits.
Yeah, we were. Because we were all from different towns.
Yeah.
So we would all jam into the bus, and then we would go to some random city.
Our coach would be the driver.
Yeah, the coach was the driver.
Oh, that's funny.
So it was fun. Great experience. Good exposure to good basketball. But so two sports in college. I don't know. I think maybe part of it was I didn't really think about it being a lot. I just sort of. I liked football and I liked basketball, and the school itself was very supportive. Both coaches were kind of like, yeah, sure, if you want to give it a whirl, go for it.
Yeah.
I think probably the biggest challenge that I had to kind of work my way through was physically it's two different in shapes. So, football is a little more, rough and tumble. You got to lift weights, it's less cardio. Basketball is almost total opposite where, your cardio is really important. And so the transition from being in shape for football to moving to basketball, the other, and this is a little more subjective, as I got older, I was a captain. My senior year, I was a captain of both teams. And there's quite a bit of overlap between football and basketball in college. And so the football team would still be kind of mid-season and basketball would be starting. Mm-hmm. And I, a lot of times, wasn't able to be there. And so the hardest part was like the young like freshmen would show up and, I was a starting point guard, but I wasn't at practice or games for the first quarter of the season. So that was a kind of a tricky dynamic to be able to come in and say, I'm going to be the leader of the team, but I'm not here right now.
Right.
But in terms of the physical part of it, I don't know that I don't watch a lot of TV.
Yeah.
And I did work study, so I would go basically, classes during the day. I did the laundry for the field house at Hobart. That was my job. So I would go class, practice, work, study, home, lights out, rinse and repeat. So,
what about cardio? So you're coming in quarter of the season basketball. So you miss all the preseason and first few weeks where you're trying to get all your cardio and get into that basketball shape.
Yeah.
And you're just thrown in from football shape.
Yeah.
And the games are already rolling.
Did you just foul out immediately?
I took a little heat from the guys and they're like, because I would come in and I'm like,
you're
I'm trying to lose a little more muscle like you would on the football field.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was tough. It was, and as you probably imagine, like, when you don't play basketball, when you're not in sort of the groove, you get an open jump shot and it still feels awkward because you haven't really shot. And so there was a kind of a feeling out period. Yeah. The better part of a few weeks probably to get me kind of acclimated. But I still shot, so I was still getting the gym and put shots up. It was just more that, getting your sea legs when a game started was a little more challenging.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that kind of competitive nature and the commitment that you built from playing sports translates to your job now. Am I correct in saying that, you think?
Yeah.
Definitely the jobs out of college.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I'm a believer, the harder you work, the luckier you get. So, how did I get the opportunity to be in New York and work for JP Morgan and do the whole thing down there? Like it was, it was a lot of times it was probably the things that I was doing at college that maybe no one was, looking at, or it was kind of behind the scenes. My coach was noticing, geez, this kid's playing 2 sports and he's getting good grades and he's in the honor society and so that's just my mentality.
Yeah.
I'm fidgety. I wake up early. I go to bed early.
Were your parents like that?
My dad is a rabid fan. To the point now where it's sort of come full circle where I'm now on the sidelines watching my 2 girls. Yeah. My dad was always the one who, game started at 4:00, some modified basketball game in the middle of nowhere, and he'd be there at 3:15. And it's like, Dad, can you please? It's only gonna be 14 people at this game to begin with, and you're here 40 minutes early. So ultra committed. He owned an H&R Block business in addition to his full-time job. So there was a period of every year where he was working his tail off. I don't know. I guess I didn't really think about it being crazy until you look back and say it doesn't happen that often. Yeah.
So let me ask too, you guys as former teammates now, like you collaborate, I guess you could say, professionally. Like, what is that like?
It's cool. I would say that. Yeah.
Joey helps out a lot.
Yeah.
Brienzi.
Oh, yeah?
Who's our director of finance for people on the podcast listening who don't know that.
Yeah.
So, it's cool. We do our lunches, play golf.
Yeah.
Yep. We got a lot of girls between the 2 of us, kids. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, a lot of girls.
I get a lot of lessons from Colby on daughters. So that helps.
Yeah. Huh. That's fun.
No, it's definitely neat.
And I would say we're not the Rochester market. There's a lot of people that took similar career path, if you will, where you grew up here, close to here, maybe got away, got your taste of a big city or a different area, different industry, and then decided, hey, I want to come back. It's not so bad.
Yeah.
And
we talked about that with Vinny quite a bit.
I think maybe COVID even, made that a little bit more of a popular trade.
Right.
Which is great. I mean, it's...
Yeah, sometimes I don't know if it's good that it's a secret or bad that it's a secret how great Rochester is. Like, I think it's good because we kind of have it to ourselves. But then you talk to people in New York or Boston or Philly and the way they look at Rochester. But you'd think having more people, at least having some outside investments and stuff, could enhance our community and our economy as well. So it's kind of good and bad on how people think of that. But obviously when we do it, I don't know anyone who's done what we've done, grew up around here, moved out to a big city, then came back, who says, oh, no, I want to go back to the big city.
Right.
I don't know one person who has that. Like, the lifestyle here is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And we're saying that as there's 4 inches of snow outside.
Yeah.
Right.
Very true. Yeah. All right. And Colby, you're heavily involved in the community. You alluded to it a little while ago in one of the previous questions. You're involved on 3 separate boards, one with the Y, MCC, and Hobart. Can you just tell us a little bit about why you value community involvement and then how you've gotten involved and what you do on these boards?
Yeah. So I guess this goes back to, once I kind of found my footing in Rochester, that sense of community kind of came back to me. And I say that, coming from Weedsport, which is a very small town, almost varsity blues-esque, where it's hard to go anywhere without seeing someone. And I didn't really have that in Rochester at first because this wasn't my hometown. Right. So the idea of trying to get involved, get engaged, I think it was important for me to kind of build out my social network in addition to kind of my friends, but my professional network. And so I'll kind of walk through MCC Foundation. I think the one stat that kind of jumped out to me was I think it's probably like 85% of the graduates from MCC that don't go on to a 4-year school stay here.
Yeah.
And so it was really kind of an investment in the Rochester community. A lot of these folks that the foundation supports, underprivileged, or they come from very different backgrounds where maybe they were a parent at an early age and they decided they wanted to go get their nursing degree, but that wasn't until they were 35. And so different paths that lead them to MCC, but really the output was what I was, what drew me there. The YMCA, I was sort of an easy one. My wife or I are at the YMCA every weekday, 5 or 5:15 in the morning. The work that they were doing, I think the Y in Rochester is really unique in the sense that it's got both, a mission in the city, which I think is really critically important. And then it's got some of the Ys that we know in the suburbs, which can seem like they're just nice gyms. But the dual mission of serving everybody the way that they needed to be served was really important to me. And what they stand for, camps, childcare, all of the things that kind of check the box on being a good organization. And then, so anyway, I'm on both of those boards. I am the chair of both of them have investment portfolios. So I'm the investment chair for both of those, sit on the board, executive committee for both. And then the Statesman Athletic Association, I'm now the co-president of the Statesman Athletic Association, which is more or less a sports boosters that supports Hobart College athletics. Okay. And the tagline is the team behind the teams. So it's not meant to be sports boosters like we're going out and writing checks to players, like an NIL, big school thing.
That's where I was going with this.
Yeah. It's more things that can support the student athletes in ways beyond just maybe like the gear that they have, right, or like we have this leadership seminar that we put on, and it's funded through the donations from the Statesman Athletic Association. So there's things that kind of enhance the program, and that's really a pay it forward. I benefited from the whole structure. I went through it, and now I feel like it's fun. I would be lying if I said going back and dealing with Hobart athletics is not my forte. I like it.
Yeah.
So it's an easy one for me to be able to commit the time for that.
Cool.
Going back to the MCC. So I've been fairly bearish lately on the future of these 4-year schools with everything going on. But I don't hear that much about MCC. When I was growing up, it was a big push. People, they didn't know what they wanted to do. A lot of what you just said ended up going to MCC to get their bearings and then go off to a 4-year school. Now I think there could be programs where you just need 2 years anyways.
Right.
But how are they doing today? Are they bringing in a lot? How's the school? I just don't hear much about them.
I think they're a gem, hidden gem. They're one of the, if you get into the SUNY system, MCC is always up at the top of the list. Yeah. I think one of the things that I really enjoy being a part of is, the idea of, you take a 4-year degree in even my degree, economics from Hobart. It seems sort of just, what do you go and do with that?
Yeah.
I think the idea of providing an education more along the lines of a trade, which is what MCC can provide, is really attractive for someone. Yeah. And there's a need for it. So a lot of times MCC will go out and they can partner with an employer, bring them to the table and say, what in the world do you need? Where's a void that we can help you fill? And then they teach to that need. And at the end of the day, what you get is a symbiotic relationship between the employer, who is yearning for an employee to come in with a certain skill set, and the employee who has to just go to a 2-year school and then walks out with a full-time job, making good money.
The ROI for both parties.
Yeah.
It's fantastic on that.
Yeah. So
it's interesting. I think we've heard that a couple times. And I don't know how much we've talked to them, but I think that is great and needs to be pushed out. We talk about community stuff in Rochester, and I just don't think it's voiced enough. And everyone knows certain stuff is around here, but it's just not getting out to the community enough.
Right.
But I think that's great. I think a lot of companies might not know about that.
Right.
It's a great opportunity to partner to find employees. And we've done well and had success with co-ops out of our IT, basically because we need software engineers, and that's specific. But there has to be I've been pleasantly surprised how much talent is in Rochester.
Yeah.
And just it'd be a lot better to keep it in Rochester than everyone leaving. I know I did it, but it'd be better to keep them all here.
Right.
So definitely interesting. I mean, overall, what do you think of the community? How do you think of the business community? Kind of the economy in Rochester right now?
I think there's work to be done. I do think that, and maybe it's just my age showing, there's no place I'd rather be. It's one of the reasons we're both members of Oak Hill Country Club. And not to go down that path, but my wife and I joined Oak Hill the year that we moved here. We didn't know anyone. Probably shouldn't say that because I had some sponsors that said they knew me. But anyway, we joined, and one of the reasons it was more of a symbolic gesture that said, we're raising our family here. Come hell or high water, we're going to raise our family here. And that was a stake in the ground. So there's no place I'd rather be. I think that sort of thought it permeates. I think what maybe we need to focus on is it's more at the industry level, and it's making, being known for something as opposed to just, kind of this sleepy old town that used to have Kodak and Xerox.
Yeah.
If we can start to create more of an identity with the business community, it's great that, we have some of the things that we have, but I think it can be more of a focal point, or it could be something that could draw people to the area if we can create more of an identity.
Yeah, I think we struggle with that. That's what I've seen. And the people running it that are kind of the larger companies have been here forever for the most part, and the same industries kind of run the town. And we have to do better at supporting companies trying to grow here and new industries and industries that you see around the world that are the best industries. Why wouldn't we want to be part of that? So it is, I know Colby does a great job getting his voice out there, being a part of these boards, but it's super important for people like us to stay stay in it and keep doing it because it's amazing to me how much potential Rochester has, and we're just kind of stuck right there. It's a great spot to live and all, but to get us to that next level, something needs to happen with the economy and business.
Well, I would be interested. I'm going to, if I could jump in a time capsule and see what, 15 or 20 years from now, what Micron has done to Syracuse. I mean,
it'll be interesting.
That's, $1 million, probably $1 billion question. But I do think that how that transforms the community, if it does, assuming it does, in what way? Where are people going to look back and say, why did we give away everything we gave to bring them here if it's only did this? Or maybe it's going to revitalize things. You'd like to think it's the latter.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had my opinions on, doing more with AI in New York. And I know there's a whole political game that you have to play.
Right.
And there's a lot of people pushing against you on that. But I do think if you look around, the top companies in the world are all AI companies, whether it's in infrastructure, chips, or applications. And we really don't have anything localized until Micron possibly comes in.
Right. Yeah.
And I know people want to get in here.
Right.
But we'll see.
Yeah. Rochester Wilmac will be the big company in Rochester someday. That's what we're working towards.
There you go.
Yeah. I had to. Come on. Gotta admit the vision, All right. Colby, as we start to wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share? Any projects, initiatives, the type of stuff that you're working on that you'd like to share about?
Stuff that I'm working on.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah. Any message you like to share, essentially?
Can you get my kids to go to bed a little earlier?
You should talk to Joe Brienzi about that one. He's struggling with that.
No,
right now.
I mean they're fun. No, I don't think there's anything specific. I would just say, I feel like people, midlife folks, like Steve and myself, I think at some level you have to embrace the chaos. There's nights when I'm in my work attire. It's 8:30. I haven't eaten dinner yet, and I'm picking up a kid from a soccer field in Hilton. And I think the one thing that I try to remember is that when you tell that story or that night to someone who's been through it, their first reaction is, I would do it again in a heartbeat. Yeah. So embracing kind of the day, if you will, especially around here, it's cloudy most days. It's cold. It's kind of, it gets dark at 3:30 in the afternoon. It can get sort of seasonal depression can kick in, but I would just say, try to take that advice from the people that have built up the wisdom to say, just embrace it. It's going to be chaotic. There's going to be potholes. There's going to be things that don't go your way, whether it be business or life. But just carry on.
I just think it's so funny how we just poo-poo on like the physicality of Rochester, and then we're like, it's great though. I wouldn't want to be any place
if the
else.
weather was better, there'd be hundreds of more thousands of people here. So
yeah,
well,
no,
and if every day was sunny, you wouldn't appreciate the sun.
Yeah. No, I appreciate your message, Colby. Thanks for joining us. To our listeners, you can connect with Colby on LinkedIn. Colby Feane, that his last name is Feane. Colby Feane on LinkedIn. And to learn more about Wealth Enhancement Group, you can go to wealthenhancement.com. Any other places you want to direct people if they want to learn more about you or what you're doing, Colby?
No, that's good. I'm not a
that
social
covers
media guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I stay off the media. Yeah.
Well, you better like our post when we share about this episode.
You got it.
I'll bother you.
All right. Thanks,
awesome.
Colby.
All right. Thanks, Colby. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Wilmac Wire. If you like today's conversation, make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or watch full episodes on our YouTube channel. You can also learn more about Wilmac Technologies and our work in customer interaction technology at wilmactech.com. We'll be back soon with more conversations with the drivers, those shaping our industry and those building right here in Western New York. See you next time.